Ladies and gentlemen of the crypto space, we're live on a Friday, November 11th at 11:31 a.m. And this is the week of all weeks. This is the catastrophe, all catastrophes. This is the Lehman of the crypto space. Everything is completely annihilated, completely destroyed. There's no stability, no sense of normalcy. Volatility is extreme. Nobody trusts anything. No one trusts anyone. And that should always have been the case. We started this entire journey with decentralization, but immutability. And that was the most exciting thing that maybe it wasn't apparent at first, but clearly it should be apparent now that immutability is the most important thing. You need to be a custodian of your own assets on a decentralized chain where no centralized actor can affect your capacity to have something or what you could do with the something that you have. And right about now, obviously, everyone is wishing we never diverged or deviated from that start, from those roots, from what was important. Custody and optionality, choice, the ability to make a choice of what you do with what you have. Ah, clearly I'm quite emotional at this point, but you guys know me very well for a capacity to peer through the madness and to chart a path forward and to think rationally about the choices we have before us. What could we do? What should we do? What should we not do? And let's get it started because we got a heck of a week of insanity. And for what it's worth, I still very comfortably argue that the most important thing is to navigate when things are tough. You don't leave, you don't walk away, you process and you make good choices. What's the appropriate thing to do? The appropriate thing to do in this market is to survive. The appropriate thing to do is to make sure you have enough cash. The appropriate thing to do is to make sure you have optionality. If things happen, if this happens and that happens, can you make a choice about what to do? And you can't do that if you're running away in fear. So the appropriate thing is to know that this shit is a fucking catastrophe. So many people lost everything, and if you haven't, you've made better choices than worse. You've survived. So obviously, I could speak to my choices and how I have survived and how I plan to continue navigating. And you could compare it to how you feel and what you do to try and chart the best course possible. Because that's the whole point of this damn stream over the last couple of years is to converse about the choices we have, the decisions we make, so we could compare to one another and what we're doing and how we're navigating. Can't get out of the market. It doesn't work like that. But what does that mean is the most important question. Clearly, it's going to be subjective. And everyone, look, there's plenty of traders that are probably doing stupid, degenerate stuff on a day like this, but frankly, nothing changes for me. We've talked about this for probably the last year, considering the market climate. There's no action to take. Why? Because I've opted for positions that are illiquidatable. Illiquidatable. I think that is the most innovative offering of the entire crypto space. And the most important thing that is not liquidatable is positions with protocols that are critically immutable. The software will exist in perpetuity no matter what, under any circumstance. Obviously, the electricity turns off or the network is history. And Ethereum would be a failed experiment, and that's another story. But that's the only condition in which immutable code no longer has significance. What do I have up on the screen is a chart that I've showed you guys several times, the resonance. And Luke has a great mind, much more macro than I, so I appreciate everything that he does and the perspective that he has. And clearly, my focus and interest is my own financial navigation. But his is the presentation of macro observation and what he does for his business. But obviously we overlap, and my acknowledgement that crypto fits very well into the macro system. So where we are with regard to this resonance is significant, and right now the deflation is going to be paramount. It's going to be extraordinary. And there's nothing that's safe that's an asset that's not a dollar. And that's what we see in the DXY as well, as we're seeing the resonance is the crash of the dollar. But it's not necessarily going to be a crash. We got the 200 SMA below. Watch it bounce right here and just completely annihilate every emerging market on the planet, because that's the type of system that we're in. It's a maximum pain system. How the hell is dollar pressure, dollar buy pressure going to be alleviated? Come on, bankruptcies, liquidity evaporation. It's going to flatline the entire goddamn planet. What we saw in '08 and 2020 are foreshadows for the degree of implosion that has yet to come. The degree of implosion is just going to get more extraordinary, more ferocious, more hostile. It's going to be a humanitarian crisis left and right. So liquidity has picked up a little bit, so that's why we have a little bit of stability in the market. So aside from this liquidity indicator, Arthur's coinage, the most important representation of liquidity is the dollar. As the dollar pulls back, it is cheaper to service dollar-denominated debts worldwide, which frees up foreign currency liquidity, allows things to stabilize for this brief moment in time before the carnage continues. I mean, we're on the precipice of a housing crisis, of an auto loan crisis, of a student loan crisis. It's everywhere. It's the everything bubble, and it's bursting. So that doesn't mean we should be afraid. It means we should have prepared as best as possible. How many months, how many years of value do you have saved to navigate? This is not a goddamn stream about, it was never a stream about making money. It was a stream about navigating. It's a stream about value preservation and growth, because I always had a penchant for how to unfuck the current system and put it into terms of how things should have traditionally been, where you could work and save and have goals and progress towards your interests. And I miss the days of the stories of the '60s, the white picket fence. You have one job, stay-at-home wife that takes care of the kids. You save for retirement. You have a mortgage on a house that you can actually pay for, not this current catastrophe of a situation. So that's what I wanted to do with the crypto space, and I saw an inkling of hope and light at the end of the tunnel, where you could tap into capital flows and transaction fees and get income streams from an entrepreneurial perspective, and an opportunity perspective that is not offered to us by traditional finance anymore. A bit of a rebirth of financial opportunity. And I think that is completely unchanged. So the whole point maybe of today's stream is that I don't think anything has changed. Clearly, if you had your capital in FTX, or you're affected by a subsidiary or one of the companies that is completely imploding at this point, it's a catastrophe to say the least. I'm sorry. I feel bad. I empathize. Um, but you could do better next time, is don't expose to risk. Just don't do it. And then you have your own custody, you have your ledger, you own your shit. It's on chain. No one's taking your assets if it's on chain. You own Bitcoin, no one's taking your assets. I don't own much Bitcoin at all. Although I did claim my Ren Dark Node fees, which is pretty nice. That was a 4 chip. But that looks like it's going to be a catastrophe, to say the least. There that system goes. All that hope and promise for what it could offer. That's going to go out the door most likely. But frankly, everything that I had hopes for in the short term is probably getting written off, and I'm prepared. Just make sure you have enough cash to navigate. There's no buying in this market. Don't tempt yourself. Sit back and watch this insanity unfold. Understand it, process it, and then When everything completely collapses, this is exactly what will play out. Why? Because that's what has played out historically. They will bail out the system when everyone stops paying student loans, when 50% of auto loans implode, and we have the loss of trillions of dollars. It's going to require intervention. Otherwise, it'll be contagion and you'll have systemic failure, in which case you'll have civil instability, civil disorder, absolute chaos, civil war, international war, and then that's what a financial system is designed to avoid. A financial system is designed to create mechanisms for organized labor and coordination and cooperation across borders and trade, and it organizes all those things. So when a financial system is on the precipice of failure, everything fails. Civil order fails. So they will intervene. But this time they seem to want to intervene when everything is going to be a catastrophe yet again. That's the only way they know how to proceed. It is what it is. So your goal is to survive until the intervention, because there's no way, there is absolutely no way the system stabilizes and incomes increase to accommodate the rising interest rate on credit cards, or incomes increase so people could actually pay their stupid student loans, or incomes increase so they could actually pay their adjustable rate mortgages. They're going to reset significantly higher as interest rates have ripped through the roof. No, this thing's going to fucking explode. It's a time bomb. Shishka's in the house. What a week. Bill Clinton, George, pleasure. Buenos dia. Dan, hope everything is okay and didn't lose funds. I'm fine. Nothing has changed for me, and I'm proud to be able to offer you guys this stream uninterrupted. Nothing will change with my capacity to offer this stream. Nothing changes with regard to my story, my actions, my choices. I made the choices I made to focus on illiquid, illiquidatable positions in base layer infrastructure. And there was a reason for that. And I have thought to myself, was it the best choice? Was that the best primary position? It was underperforming. Other things were outperforming. And in hindsight, maybe I could have capitalized more for periods of time, but it didn't feel right. What felt right was the fact that curve was critically immutable. It was regulation resistant, censorship resistant. You can't do anything about it unless you block the damn blocks or turn off the electricity. It's going to be there. And that's meaningful. That was the most meaningful thing I ever saw in the entire crypto space. Upgradable contracts, targetable teams left and right, flawed monetary policy. In the end, it all blew up. In the end, it's all gone. And what are we left with? What are you going to be left with in ashes? You're going to be left with the base layer infrastructure, the critically immutable, the shit that cannot change even if someone wanted it to. And in the end, that's the most significant thing. The critically immutable. Crypto bets, wild times. Any thoughts on link staking? I don't care about it at all. Going live in December and you can earn curve. Not interested. Joe, I called my 401k broker to buy a MicroStrategy with some excess cash I had in there. He thought I was nuts. Yeah, it's yeah, well, seems like Joe, you want to take some risk in this kind of market. That's cool. Not not something I would do. I mean, why not just own Bitcoin? And frankly, the narrative there is like, you can't take it away. No one can take it from you. Now the value is fucked. The monetary policy is fucked compared to Ethereum at this point. It's quantitatively the fact that Ethereum's monetary policy is astronomically superior, but the decentralization or the uh, So that's what Bitcoin has for it. It was the first. It's not the best. I don't know. Saylor doesn't maybe sees that lack of confiscatability as the most meaningful attribute, and I agree in regards, and I agree from a billionaire's perspective, a 100-year time horizon, it makes sense. How do you transfer wealth into the future? I mean, what, you keep 10 mil in your bank account and you put a bill into Bitcoin, and who cares? It is what it is. It's if anything's going to survive in 100 years, it's going to be Bitcoin, and everything else is dead. So that makes sense from his perspective. I appreciate his narrative, but his narrative is always suitable for his perspective. If you're a little guy with 10 grand in a bank account, you don't give a shit about 100 years down the road. The narrative is not applicable to you. Clearly, the perspective changes if you're in a hyperinflationary country. If your financials are collapsing, it's a different calculation as well. I'm in a fortunate position that I don't have to consider that. I operate dollar denominated, so I'm not going to head down that rabbit hole at this point in time. Peace in the house, a pleasure. I hope everything's well. Clearly, it's a mess over there. They're protecting the rupee. They're being very defensive with the currency. There's been interventions. Um, it's a mess over there in India as well, my friend. George, um, yeah, I agree. I mean, it's not nuts, but I mean, basically, you're opting for a representation of a narrative instead of just deploying to the narrative. So he's Sailor's representing that narrative and he's fighting for it. Personally, I would not choose for representation because I represent myself and I have a capacity to make these choices for myself, and I don't need his leadership. I don't need his narrative on top of my own. Rupert, one day closer to the bottom, most likely. How much further down does it go, and what is producing lower lows? I would look to the chart of truth, and we zoom out to the monthly for that. So we did have a brief wick to lower low, so this maybe is a double bottom of sorts. It's not a lower low in all time. Um, so this is not like a bear market move this past week. This is a capitulation event where capital was destroyed and liquidations occurred across the board. So this can be an aberration, and this is not necessarily a lower low in that regard. And we must stick to the monthly because if you go short term, it's irrelevant. So if this wick closes above, 53 cents, I would say this is not necessarily a lower low, and we could chalk this month up to an aberration. It's irrelevant in this regard, and that's what's beautiful about the position. You can't liquidate it. It was a purchase. So all that's pertinent is the cash flow that it offers. That is the only thing that's meaningful. That's the value. And, it looks to be retaining value. There's a fair amount of offers available. That's good to see. Survive. On a different note, this will make people trust DeFi much more. Yes, there's nothing but DeFi. Everything else is worthless, garbage, painful, representation, it's prone to human eh, action and choice and subjectivity. Fuck equities, fuck opinion, fuck boards. You don't want exposure to any of that bullshit. How many times I got burned by equity boards and hostile takeovers. Horrible. So that's what DeFi is. That's the power of a position that is not confiscatable, that's not subject to human subjectivity. You have a fixed piece of code. It does what it does unquestionably. That's this chart right here. This is the price representation of the asset that is going to execute under all circumstances, no matter what. Now, obviously, there's a couple of other critically immutable protocols. Aave is still critically immutable. Uniswap is critically immutable. Now, Aave's got a shit situation because he got treasuries yielding 4 or 5%. Even it's significantly higher than stablecoin positions. So it's literally a absolute disincentive to deploy any capital on Aave, so you might as well put it in the goddamn treasury and get 4 times the amount of return on your money in a risk-free position. So that the narrative for Aave is falling apart very quick with treasury yields at this rate. Um, Uniswap, there's no investment potential in Uniswap. Market makers are fucked left and right. And owning Uni is useless. It's worthless. So there doesn't have anything going for it in that regard. So clearly it's critically immutable, but there's no value to extract from it. There's no investment opportunity. So that's significant. There is very few places to allocate capital to in the crypto space at this point, and that is a tweet I posted earlier. Opportunities are less than 10 fingers without taking risk. Now, clearly, there's reason to have risk. I still have a structured portfolio of shit that could potentially still become something meaningful from still out of the risk curve. I look, fixed forex. You know what Andre does? That boy makes critically immutable shit. So interestingly enough, fixed forex is back on the table as something that's quite interesting. Frax has regulatory exposure, but if anything's done well in this environment, it's Frax. I mean, everything he talks about on Telegram, that boy is a full. The sense is he's got full control of the situation. He's like, yeah, we do this, this, and this, and they're iterating and developing. So, from a risk standpoint, that's probably the only thing that's interesting out on the risk curve because it feels like they have full control over the situation. Now, clearly, I wouldn't own it outside of a locked position because you're not going to be able to stomach the volatility. You will not be able to stomach the volatility. How many people bought shit on the dip and they sold it already? You're not going to be able to stomach it. You can't handle it. So either make a purchase and it's gone, you own something, or don't and own the cash. So you're going to drive yourself nuts. The only way to navigate these markets is to take choices out of the equation. That's why I argue that the unsellable positions are the biggest innovation of the crypto space. There's a prayer. I'm not the most religious person, but I appreciate the serenity prayer. It's God grant me the power to change the things I can, to know the things I can, and be smart enough to know the difference. So the better you can as a human minimize the amount of choices and options that you have in front of you, the less anxiety you're going to have, and the better the capacity you're going to have to navigate and to move forward. Serenity. I don't have any choices. I have cash and I have shit that I own that I cannot sell if I wanted it to, and all that shit just makes a weekly revenue stream. I have eliminated choices from my daily consideration. That's the only thing that was one of the primary things that makes what I do sustainable and why I'm not in a miserable situation. And I'm quite comfortable. I might be agitated and frustrated, but I'm not in an unmanageable emotional state. Let's take a look at the burn real quick, as someone said. Bill mentioned, yeah, this is incredible. So come on, Bitcoin has a one and change percent inflation rate, 1.7%, and Ethereum is deflationary. Listen, we talk about critical immutability, and we've talked about monetary policy for the last 2 years. This is the most extraordinary monetary policy there is. There's a constant demand for this asset. It's constantly being used for transaction fees, and it's frickin' deflationary. Just the fact that there's no inflation, if it was zero, is extraordinary, but it's negative issuance? Very, very interesting. Um, what did I miss? What did I miss? We the people started stacking Gala NFTs. Passive income is nice. I don't know what it's about, but yeah, just bear in mind if the NFT is sellable, you're going to have that idea on your mind always, should I sell it? Should I hold it? Is the yield enough? And that's going to drive you nuts. So I'm not a fan of anything that is unsellable anymore. I'm not a fan of it because I will sell the crap out of it and take the cash. Ah, thanks for preparing us for the worst, Noah. You're welcome, Jangle. Looking forward to continue viewing your streams through the bear. Yeah, yeah. You're welcome again. And I'm gonna navigate because what else do we have? There's no other option to understand the macro situation, understand this resonance that's playing out, and stay in a market and navigate a market. You gotta be able to traverse it because there's nothing else. Because if you're working and getting a paycheck on a Friday, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to get anywhere. There's no future savings. I was at the top of the pay scale in New York City. I was paycheck to paycheck on Long Island, and this was before housing prices went through the roof. I was making software engineering top of the pay scale. It was 180 grand, give or take. If you got 200, 220, maybe it was Peloton at the time. This was like 2017, 2018, maybe a Google. I mean, higher paid was like, PhDs in mathematics at Facebook working on algorithms. They would get 300 grand and 100 grand signing bonus. But I was paycheck to paycheck. I had a $3,500 a month mortgage on a $500,000 house on Long Island, and there was nothing. There was no future. I had no capacity to save whatsoever. It's an absolute. So as much as you could say first world, um, and I should have been grateful, it's emotionally devastating to know that I wasn't heading anywhere. So I've been through a great deal of emotional distress over the years. First world emotional distress. Clearly, it wasn't like food scarcity or fear from violence, but emotional distress is emotional distress nonetheless. So obviously, it's all relative to our situation geopolitically and domestically, relatively domestically. But that's a difficult situation that a lot of people find themselves in. And I feel for everyone in emotional distress. I feel for everyone that is fearing violence and anyway, I digress. Like, look, P on the channel has his mom that's very sick, and it reminds me of my mom, and I helped a bunch of people over in Sierra Leone. It's a catastrophe over there. It's an absolute catastrophe. So we have our relative catastrophes. What's most important, P, and everyone on the stream, no matter where you are in the world, is you don't fucking stop. You find the next thing to work on. You keep moving forward and you find a way to navigate. You take the bull by its horns and you don't fuck around. You got one shot at doing this shit, so you don't stop. You don't cower in fear. You don't pull back and be like, all right, I'm just gonna go work and like maybe I'll retire one day. And no, you don't pull back. You move forward. You get a little angry. You pull your shit together. Hike up your boots. One curious view. Notice rent hasn't dumped yet, even though owned by Alameda. No idea. No idea. There's risk all over that, but I can't do anything about it because it would take a month to take the capital out. So just, it's going to sit there. It is what it is. I am hopeful for Red 2.0. I'm hopeful everything proceeds as we hope it will. It is what it is. George, most likely everyone is locked into nodes and they can't sell. That's correct. Frank, thank you for consistency, Captain. Knowledge is everything. You're very welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor. The big twat, hello. Hey Noah, are you as convinced now as you were in previous bear markets that there will be a next bull cycle for crypto? I don't care whether there's a bull cycle or a bear cycle. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is liquidity. What matters is the fact that this is an emerging market that has captured dollar liquidity. There's a reason for that. I don't care if shit goes up 10x, 100x. I don't care. What I care about is capital flow and captured dollars. Captured dollars means capital will flow out and capital will flow back in. as new products and services come online. And this is a new world of digital tangibility and novel products and services relative to historic norms. So there will be new products and services because it's human nature to be productive and to create and to build. So there will be reasons for capital to flow in. When that capital flows in or out, there will be Forex transactions between like type assets as well as not like type assets. And that is my focus, Forex. I want to capture that capital flow in the form of transaction fees, and that's why I've always focused on curve. So thank you very much. That's the underperformer. That's what I've chosen, and I will underperform. I will make less money than other people that take on less risk, but I have my narrative, and I will not deviate from my narrative. I follow the liquidity, I follow the volume, I follow the transactions, and I want the transaction fees. And that is my path that I have chosen to pursue. I don't see my narrative being invalidated under these current circumstances. I don't think anything has changed with regard to the way I am engaging with these markets, especially considering these current circumstances. Curve the immutable phoenix rising from the ashes, hopefully. Any thoughts on USDC solvency? Could bankruptcy court freeze USDC? That element? No. I don't know. I have no idea. There's risk associated with stablecoins, but stablecoins are portable, they're fungible, and they're spendable using a Juno card. So there's things to think about in that regard. And you guys know, I've said it. I don't like to think too much. I don't like choices and options, but that's something I've been thinking about as well. Don't think the contagion is priced in yet. I have no idea, my friend. No idea. Love your show. How high APY can I get with 4-year lock with Curve for say 5 grand? You're gonna make basically no money. You make 25% of the money, and that is probably going to go down. Um, so it's not necessarily a great position for small capital. Um, you know, I'm not a financial advisor, but I give advice. So, what can a person do with small capital? You probably are in a position to think about savings rather than growing wealth. And savings in this environment is merely protecting your dollars from the deflationary wave that is coming. It's not here yet. It has not collapsed. So, frankly, treasuries are a good bet in this environment. Because if everything collapses and we have, a 2020, 2008, where, and then you have the tidal wave uh, of, uh, of 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 debt implosion, everyone will run to the treasuries. Um, so there's your asymmetric bet. So you're not in a position with $5,000 to pursue business ownership, to pursue cash flow, to pursue the things we talk about, um, and that's the truth. So you're in a position to try and want to grow your capital. And to do that, you have to go out of the risk curve. But this is not an environment to go out of the risk curve. This is an environment to be protective and to be grateful that you have any dollars whatsoever. This is an environment to sit back and watch a complete global financial shit show play out. This is not an environment to go out on the risk curve. I would say treasuries or dollars. And treasuries will be out of the risk curve as well because maybe we have a sovereign debt crisis. And then treasuries, the yields keep going up. And then U.S. government implements yield curve control because everything is fucked. And in which case, you're getting into very questionable territory. What's the value of a dollar if everything is fucked? If the U.S. did real yield curve control like Japan, look what happened to the yen. So as you can see, it's not so simple. So I wouldn't do anything with that 5. I'd probably keep it as a cash. Um, but treasuries are a consideration. 1-year treasury gets you what, 4 and change percent, whatever the heck it is right about now. Beats a bank account. Can you share your thoughts on Ren with the whole automated debacle? Good luck. And I say that as a person with 3 dark nodes. That's about it. I will not be unlocking them. I just claim the transaction fees, and I hope that some value is retained. Back in black. Hey Noah, can you talk about the significance of Vodium supporting optimism for V curve holders? It's a big deal. I retweeted that. Um, Vodium offers a capacity for protocols to rent votes to finance liquidity in a capital efficient way. Um, and that's big. If a protocol wants to come online, they require liquidity. You can't just put a token without incentivizing liquidity. You're not going to have any depth. You're going to have an illiquid market, so you're going to have extreme volatility and likely liquidation. You need incentives to incentivize not liquidating. You need to incentivize people providing liquidity, and the most capital efficient way to do it is for the protocol not to pay for it. For the protocol to rent votes and for Curve to pay for it. And that's what Curve created was commoditized inflation. So it's significant for it to go cross chain. And Optimism is a heck of a network. Heck of a network. Arbitrum and ZK Sync. There's a lot of stuff that is very exciting from a technological perspective. And if a protocol wants to come online, they need to rent votes. So that's my focus. I want to be the person that I'm a renter, real estate, and you're on the right side of rent. You're either renting or the rentor. Right side of rent. George, 20 to 40%. It's about 25%, give or take. You go on the Warden. The most yield is on the Warden. 28%, 27. So that's nice. But on 5 chip, that doesn't do much. So I wouldn't expect the curve price to appreciate significantly. I would expect maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know. I don't expect 100x, 1000x on the money on curve. I just don't. But that's what I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. I expect the volume of the protocol. Obviously I don't know what's going to play out, but I don't expect the multiples. And if you're going to want to get returned, it's going to be the curve position. So the price point of curve is irrelevant. Can't sell it. Nobody in their right mind would let the voting rights expire over a 4-year period to be able to liquidate it. It doesn't make any sense. So it's a purchase. Alexander, first time I get to see a live stream. A pleasure from Europe. Prices are going to get hopefully a little bit cheaper there as the strength of the dollar comes down. So it looks like we're getting a little bit of relief into the winter. I'm afraid of this 200 SMA on the daily. If you go out to the weekly, all right, fine. You got the 50 SMA down here. 100 SMA, 200 SMA bullish cross. I mean, this is a golden cross over here. And it really did rip to the upside. 50 SMA, 200 SMA cross. Let's go out to the monthly. We have the golden cross back here. Ah, I mean, there's a lot of support above 100. And we really need to see a nice leg down to put some relief on the foreign fiat and emerging markets. I mean, the strong dollar is such a catastrophe for the rest of the world. It's such a shame. All right. I hope everyone the best. Please be smart. Don't take on risk. Protect your capital. Take care of your family. Pay your bills. And you don't need to gamble to do that. You need to take advantage of opportunities that are reasonable, that are rational, that are prudent, that have proper risk assessment. You need to make better choices than worse. You need to not be a degenerate. And protect your shit because the whole point of this game is to survive. Because if you survive to when the deflationary bust happens, there's going to be a period of inflation to follow. Not necessarily inflation with regard to consumer prices, but inflation with regard to circulating currency. Because the only way to alleviate a deflationary collapse is to inflate circulating currency artificially. and to provide liquidity to things that are collapsing, prevent the collapse. And that liquidity injection will be a boon for risk assets because that's basically a green light for people to take risk because the deflation has been alleviated by the grand currency provider. And that takes risk off the table. As risk is taken off the table, people take more risk. It's a psychological phenomena. That's the deal. You're welcome, Vince. One more question. Back in black, follow-up cross-chain V curve. Doesn't mean that mainnet V curve voters would be collecting. Probably not. Probably not. I do not know though, because it's Vodium, so Vodium is pretty smart about the way they do their implementation. The odds are it's going to be one vote, and that's the deal. Friday, November 11th, 12:11 p.m. I wish everyone a good weekend. I wish everyone a good day. Tell everyone to subscribe. We could do better. Can't help anyone if they don't listen to me. I know subscriptions have been dwindling, but it's a great community. Everyone helps everyone do better, make better choices. And I know it's hard times, but I appreciate everyone in there greatly. So, after party still on Discord, most rational community in the entire crypto space. I will see everyone on Monday. Peace.